Okay, my name's Noah with Johnson Controls. This is your simplex fire alarm panel. This does have full voice evac in this building. One thing that wasn't in the scope of work, but we went ahead and added it for you guys, were some speaker controls. So you guys can control each individual building. As far as that goes, that's pretty easy. So we are currently in building A and B. Key up those two buildings, hold the mic for 3 seconds. Ready to talk. Test, mic check, 1, 2. And then just unselect. You can do all speakers talk if you want to talk to every building. And then same thing, key up the mic, wait for your 3 tones, and you can start to talk. The annunciator, I was going to show you that. It's the exact same setup down here. Same with the remote mic, so you can talk to each building. A couple other buttons, I don't know how often you want to use them. You can manually evac the building if you wanted to. You cannot select which building to evac. That's just kind of an all or nothing. It's a global, so if you guys ever want to do a test, you could always just hit an all speakers evac. You don't have to physically hit a pull station or trip an alarm. No, all speakers evac does not report. That's why I was saying if you ever want to do a fire drill or something like that, you can hit that. It'll go through its process. You'll hear a tone, same thing, your 3 temporal tones, and then it'll start the voice evac talk. I'll let it go for a minute. If you open that door, you'll hear it a little bit better because there's no mics in here. It'll keep reporting. After the all speakers evac, if you want, you could always do selective alert. And then choose buildings. You can hear that. That's basically like your all clear message. So it's basically saying everything's fine. I don't know why they call it a selective alert. It should, as opposed
to selective is clear.
Yeah, yeah. So that's basic controls for your mics and all the audios. I don't know if you want to get in here and try to push any buttons or local speaker doesn't do anything. There's only so many custom controls we can do. Local speaker only made this one mic right here at the panel talk. So when we did all the individual building selectors, we ran out of custom control lists, and so we just eliminated. Basically, these locals aren't going to do anything, and for the most part, you're never going to want only this one speaker to go off unless it's just an owner's rep training. And so at that point, we figured we'll just remove them. This would be something that you guys would actually use in the future. Anything else on the panel? Do you know how to log into them?
323.
Yep. Menu, change access level, enter 1 for login, enter passcode 333. You are now logged in. You hit clear a couple times, it'll back you out to the main menu. These are all your speaker bypasses, so now no NACs or speakers will go off an alarm. Here's your door holder bypass, all your HVAC, fire smoke damper bypass.
All buildings?
That's all buildings. Everything in this building is programmed as a global.
Okay.
So if you have an alarm in this building, it will trigger every building. It's not isolated. Same with smoke dampers. If you have a smoke damper trip in this building, every smoke damper on the entire site will trip.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it's just as easy to set those on, turn them off.
Is there elevator bypass on there?
Yep, elevator recall bypass is the last one. The Sono alert we did, so if you guys are working on the system, that basically makes it so the buttons don't beep. So as you're working on it, you can hear an audible beep. You hit this, it's going to silence this and the annunciator. So if you're doing testing, you're working on it, you're having trouble come in and out, it's constantly not going off at the front entrance.
Silence the PZO and the diagnostic.
Yeah, yeah, it is the PZO, and so basically it's just it's Sono Alert PZO. It's the same thing.
Okay.
And so
That's
it
nice.
just basically makes it so you won't hear an audible beeping here and at the annunciator.
They get a
So
little annoyed at the
all, yeah, yeah. So all they'll have is just a little flashing light over there for the treble.
Okay.
As I turned it on, you see here's a remote sounder inhibited. There's the treble point associated with this. Turn it back off. You can see now it's back to a normal state. I just turned it on just because it makes it easier as you're talking, and then I don't have this beeping in the background. Do you know how to log in to say, you'll end up, we'll probably email you a points list for all the smoke detectors. So if you have somebody working in a certain area or doing some kind of maintenance or testing on like the kitchen hoods, your IDNet button 6 is like your M button. So if you look up a point, it would be like an M1 for A, M2 is B, M3 is C, and it kind of works its way down up to M6, which is D.
Okay.
So I mean, it's just as simple as hit M3-5. That pulls up whatever address 5 is, and there's
off.
yeah, and seeing there's nothing there for that. So we'll try 10. So M310 is building E, first floor room. That's a DAS battery charge failure point. And then if you want to scroll through, now that you know you're in building E, all you have to do is hit up and down or next previous and you can scroll. So M312 and you can check everything. It'll tell you system normal. These are all low batteries, test signals. These are all the DAS antennas. Now we're up into a sprinkler monitor is system normal. This is all building E. Keep scrolling, you'll get into a few smoke detectors. First floor, circulation by stair 3. So if you want to disable individual smoke detectors, you pull it up like this. If you're already logged in, it's just as simple as hitting disable. Are you sure you want to disable this? Hit enter. That smoke detector is now disabled and you have a disabled treble for that point on the panel. Real simple way is if you can't remember exactly what point was disabled, you could always go to the treble log. So exit out, go to the treble log. If you hit previous, it'll pull up the very last one, and here's your smoke detector that we just disabled. Go ahead and hit enable. Are you sure you want to enable this? Enter for yes, and then it has a 10-second countdown. The 10 seconds is basically if something was in alarm, it will count down, and then in that 10 seconds, if it verifies that this smoke detector is still an alarm, it will pop up and say, are you sure you want to re-enable this? I am in alarm. And then at that point you can hit cancel and it will leave it disabled. If you hit enter, it will automatically trip the fire alarm as a new sounder. It'll make all the horns and strobes and everything go back off. After the 10 seconds, smoke detector is back down to a normal state. Real basic rundown on the panel. I figure everything else, you were saying you wanted to go and look at the beam detector controllers, kind of see where those are at. And then we can kind of talk if there's any other kind of odd things around the building. And
Those the as-built up there?
Yes, these are the prints. And so you
For
can
device
go.
locations and all that?
Yes. And they might have an updated one a little bit later because there's still some.
Put a tube or something in here? Throw
That's
through
how.
here.
That's real basic rundown of how the panel works. Obviously, they still have the majority of the troubles now. If you scroll through, everything is addressable, not the smoke detectors, but also the strobes. So it's smart enough to tell you that D, second floor hallway in the entrance, it has no answer on that strobe. And so these are all just a bunch of strobes because there's one break in the circuit. They just need to tie a device in, but they can't get to it because of the carpet being installed.
Are the horn strobes and speakers separate circuits?
Yes. You have, here, I could even pop this off. Every panel is going to be fairly identical. Mm-hmm. These lower bays, this is your amp with all your speaker circuits. We went through and actually kind of put some labels on it. So if for some reason it pops up as card 7, you would be able to know, like, okay, I know card 7 is in here, but now you can come and look at the designators and just to help troubleshoot it a little bit on your side. So, you know, card 7 is this amp, and then you have speaker circuit 1, speaker circuit 2, and speaker circuit 3. So that's your 3 speaker circuits for A and B. Right here, this is probably something you're going to want to know. This is your aux4 or signal 7 is for your water flow bell. That's basically if somebody's going to be doing sprinkler testing, you're going to want to be able to log in and disable this point, just because even if you have your speaker strobe bypasses on, the bell is a separate point, so you're going to want to be able to turn this off just so the exterior.
What's the point on that?
It's either signal 7 or auxiliary 4.
How would you find that in there?
So let's see, aux is a, wrong one, 3. So just aux 7 right there. Oh, I did aux 7. So if you're off, just scroll back to 4. There you go. Water flow relay, auxiliary relay. It says it's off now because that's normal state of a relay. That state will change to an on only when there's power applied, so it would be actually
If it was active.
if it was active, and then it's just the same. So if you just want to press enter to disable, and you've just disabled that
It'll say
relay.
off.
Yeah, it'll still say off, but when you go to the trouble log, there's a disabled trouble
Okay.
on it. And that's it, disable to turn it off and on.
And that's, what's this number
Auxiliary
here?
4. This is card 2. So you have basically a power supply. This is your ESPS. This is the power supply that powers like this kind of bay. Card 8 is the NAT card. This is your strobe card with 3 strobe circuits. These are your addressable strobe circuits that come out of it.
Just for this building here.
Yeah, yeah. And then this is all the brains.
Right.
So this is your SDAT card. So this is your dialer with your phone lines. This is your main CPU. This is just straight 24 volts. This would be 24 volts that goes out to all power your duct detectors, things like that. There's another NAT card on top of this power supply. So this one has 5 circuits coming off of it. So you'd have to look at a set of prints to truly say. And if you look at a set of prints, it will say A1, A2, and A3 to designate what strobe and what speaker circuit. So it would say A1-S1. So you would know that strobe is on A1, but also has speaker circuit 1 on it. So when you go to troubleshoot things like that, right up here, these are your IDNet cards. So this is all your addressable devices, your smokes, your relays, everything like that. They are smart enough that they're built-in isolators. So technically this is 4 loops. You have A, B, C, and D. So if there's ever direct short on this, it will automatically just open and isolate just this loop. So basically you would only lose like 4 devices, or I mean, not an entire building, but you would only lose up to like 50 devices.
That circuit.
Yeah, that circuit. So you know, basically if you come in and you've got 40, 50 troubles, they do have, it's hard to see, little lights down here. So if there's an earth fault, a negative and positive, it doesn't specify on the earth faults what loops they are. It will just tell you something on this card has an earth fault or either positive or negative.
Process elimination.
Process of elimination. But the loops, if you see over here how it says loop A, B, C, and D,
Yeah.
if any of those are lit, that basically designates A, B, C, and D. That is an isolator loop light. So if any of this trips, so say this loop 4 here, which is specifically just to your fire pump room, so if there's ever a short on a water flow device or something like that, it's going to isolate that, and then you can come up and you would have this light right here for D would be lit, so you would know specifically this card is tripped. So it'll show all that in the display too.
But all the ID nets
But
up there.
yeah, and every panel is going to be basically identical. Some will have multiple ID nets depending on whether it's how many devices are in the building and split and things like that. But that's basically this panel, and then that's what I was saying. Every other transponder looks the exact same. They're just all black bays. There's no displays, no keypads. And so no speaker controls. It's just going to be a flat door, and you would open, but the cards, the amps, the power supplies, and everything else, it's all going to
But
be
those,
identical.
Cat, those are your Macs, right? I mean,
Yeah. They're technically, they consider them transponder panels because this is a networked building. It is. So basically, the other thing about that is if you ever have, if you come across like what they consider an RUI, a remote user interface. So they consider that a Class A loop. So it comes out of here and it goes around to every panel, comes all the way back to here. So if at any point there's ever a break between buildings E and F, it will still feed around each way. It just won't be a complete loop. So at that point, I mean, that's where you have to probably get somebody else that knows a little bit more about that stuff involved. But I mean, those are just some random things you might see.
everything runs down from the ground right there. under the
Yeah,
gutter.
yeah, down in the gutter, everything's, a lot of it's the thick, it's all the underground, the UF rated cable for everything they pulled that's down in the slabs and things like that. Most of this panel is all underground rated. I think there's very few that's actually just your standard THHN. But as you go around to other panels, there's not as much underground and things like that in it. So you'll see more just the standard red 18.2s and 16.2s and things like that. All right, you guys want to head over and I can show you
What's the red box right there?
This was supposed to be your IP dialer, but apparently you guys aren't using this. Or possibly once your server racks are up. As of now, you're just utilizing a primary and a secondary phone lines.
Line.
Yeah, copper pots, just 2 POTS lines. But the project did come with an IP dialer, so maybe once you guys take over the school and your server racks are officially up, somebody could come back, generate an IP address for this, and then you could have an IP dialer, and then you'd only need 1 phone line as the backup.
Okay.
This is capable. If you're not going to do IP, it's just another extra piece for an antenna, and then you can change it into a cell dialer. The card is capable of that. This conduit that comes up, depending on cell signal, because like standing here, if you check your phone, you have no service. Prairie was nice enough to leave a spare conduit up to the roof.
That goes straight up.
I'd have to double check, yeah. So worst case, if you got it.
Ceiling, and then there's
Little jog.
an opening.
Yeah.
There's an open, you would open cable to the next.
Oh, okay. There's a void in there or something.
So worst case, if you wanted to do cellular instead of an IP or POTS lines, they left you a chase to get an antenna outside the building. But, all right, you guys ready to move over and we'll check out those beam detectors? For your amp, power supply, NAT card, power supply, NAT card. Here's your IDNet cards. They only have 2 loops out up top. So IDNet, here's your card address 18. So if the main panel ever shows card 18, you know, open loop trouble or something like that, you know, and it would say building C, so you would know physically come over here, you'd have your IDNet loop short light open, and so you would know it's either A or B since C and D are unused. And then this is your audio risers. So if you ever have troubles on these, this is what I was saying ties all the panels together. So this one here is your audio riser. It ties all the audio from panel to panel to panel together.
That's an in and out.
Yep, in and out. And then this is your remote user interface. So this is what ties the brain. So if anything happens here, this is what ties this panel to the next panel. For some reason, if there is some catastrophic failure, this panel won't talk to any other ones. They do operate as a standalone panel. The bad thing is without a display, you won't know exactly what light or what's in alarm. You'd have to, like a smoke detector, you just have to walk around and physically see that it has a solid light instead of a heartbeat. But it will act as a standalone. So if something happens in this sector, it will still trip an alarm, it will still do whatever, it just won't tell the main panel what's going on, and it won't dial out on the phone lines. I mean, the chances of that happening, that's why they have a Class A loop, is because it goes out 2 ways. You would literally have to have a break come out of both of those to have something like that happen.
So it doesn't go one way, it goes another way.
Yes, yes, yeah. So that's why I was saying, if there's a break between here and the main panel, instead of just the short jumper, what it would do is it would still get there. It would just have to go through all 4 other panels to get back to the main panel, which it's a matter of seconds, you know, or milliseconds, you know, to get that data transfer. Up here, I actually hid. You actually have, so here's a user guide for your beam detectors. For the most part, you're not really going to have to do much with them. They do have, for annual testing, they do have a UL listed test button. So you don't have to physically get up there, because some of them are access is kind of hard, so that you don't have to get up there with a pole and a screen and smoke them.
What they do is just monitor what they have. So the sprinkler guys are going to have to do their
Flow switches and damper switches.
yeah, here's all your flow switches, your riser for building. He's got them all labeled A, B, C, D, I think. D, I don't know, 5, I don't see E. Probably just don't have a label on that one yet.
This is just boosting city water pressure.
Yeah, your fire pump, so in the event of alarm, water's flowing, this would automatically kick on. This little jump up here is gonna be your test loop.
If there's an alarm, all one of those are an alarm, they'll kick on.
Yeah, if it's actually
Not a general alarm.
No, they would have to have an actual like water
Flow
flow.
switch.
Pressure drop down. That's just a job.
Get the system pressure out.
Yeah, maintaining it. There are 2 exterior. I'm not sure where this exterior vault is. You do have 2 supervisory tampers in there.
Oh, I'd like to see that at some point, but it's on the drawing, I'm sure.
Yeah, the sprinkler guys will probably show you where those are. I do know